So hi everyone. My name is Ela Madej. I'm an entrepreneur and an investor. I've been involved in a couple tech companies. Started a software house in 2006 when I was 21, which kind of started my career in tech. Me and my founders launched a few different products and companies out of that. First entity, then I was lucky to co-found a company called Base CRM, which is right now doing pretty well. Most recently, I moved to the United States, joined a company called Amicus, started also working with a Polish investment fund called Innovation Nest, and I'm an active investor and actively involved in startups, so that's pretty much my background.
Hey everyone, my name is Paulina Mazurek. I used to work for Google Kraków engineering office for 7 years, where together with my colleague Dawid Ostrowski we've started Google for Entrepreneurs Kraków. We supported startups all over the Poland. And then I moved to Allegro, where I'm responsible for Allegro tech activities. And one of our areas we would like to cover is supporting startups. We cooperate with several accelerators, like in Toruń, in Kraków. And I would like to expand the activities around startups, and we do a lot of hackathons and other events for tech community.
Okay, so two facts that you probably don't know. Paulina here, you also work for an NGO. You were in Ghana at some point. And for Ela, she's a dancer, skier, and a snowboarder, I believe.
Yay.
So the panel is on the diversity within tech, and I'm very passionate about that. It's actually surprising the amount of women that you see in tech in Poland compared to other countries. So I do believe there's an issue with the diversity and gender diversity specifically in the tech world. So what's your take on that? Do you? Because I have this discussion with friends of mine. Some of them tell me, "Oh, I've never had any problems in my industry when I was doing that." Other people tell me there's definitely a lot of problems going on. So, what's your personal take on that? Have you suffered that? Have you seen that happening or not?
So I think my personal take on that is a bit biased because I was lucky enough to start a company pretty early, where I was in management, obviously. And one of my co-founders is female, so I think we managed to incubate a pretty gender-balanced company by kind of organically. So I just, in my professional experience, I never, I mean, apart from some stupid situations at some events where suddenly you realize you're not really talking about business, and that's pretty frustrating. I think I was pretty secluded from that, but when in my experience talking to startup founders and anyone in tech, I mean, just me and Seth had a panel 2 months ago in Krakow on a leadership conference, 400 people in the room. We delivered a talk, and then many women came to me and asked, like, how do you, and asked practical questions of like how actually you're able to push yourself to those positions without being treated as a girl. And so I think that is a problem, I mean, I think so. My sister, for example, she's very involved in teaching women to code because she wants to see more women to code and she wants to see more equal workplaces. But the problem seems to be pretty big. I mean, I was pretty secluded, as I'm saying, pretty secluded from that for a long time, so I'm kind of late in the game realizing that the problem exists, but I'm sure you have some other experiences too. Although Google is a pretty good company, and I'm sure I'll agree.
So, if you think of huge companies, I think that Google is special in this case, because we really had a lot of female on board, so like, we had 120 engineers and about 20 were female, so this is a really good result. I checked how we do in Allegro, and within 520 men, we have about 150 female.
1 to 5 ratio.
But this is not the reality, because most of them are Scrum Masters or product owners. So I need to follow up in terms of developers, ladies, on board. But on the other hand, when I went to Israel with 4 startups from Poland, Israeli guys were surprised and were asking us, how do you do that you have that many ladies on board in startups? And within these 2 startups, there were 2 ladies, so they were like, how do you do that, right? On the other hand, when we started some activities for women in tech or women co-leading tech startups in the region, I barely could find some who would fit the program and who would actually benefit from. So in my opinion, the problem is existing and it's huge. The good point is that we started realizing that this is present and there are not many people like Ela. So we need more and we really need to work on that.
I think what's actually pretty interesting about Poland is that I think the micro-entrepreneurship rates in Poland, I think women start more companies than men in Poland. These are mikroprzedsiębiorstwa. So they are kind of very different from a real company. But women are pretty entrepreneurial here. We have pretty high graduation rates. I don't actually have the numbers, and it's very unfortunate that Katarzyna, who is going to join us here today, she's not here because she's actually leading women leadership events, and she would have a bunch of data. I just have on my phone some stats that I'm going to bring up later. But women are pretty entrepreneurial. I think some problems, as in with most countries, so right now I live in the States, and I think in New York, just moving to SF, but in New York, the industry seems to be pretty diverse, but everybody is realizing right now that they have to hire women because of the amount of research showing that diversity is good. Also, beyond, I'm not sure if it's 10th or 15th hire, but if you don't have a single or ideally more women, by the time you're 10 or 15 people, that's causing organizational damage that can never be repaired. The culture is just not ready for bringing it more women, just because of how group dynamics works and how communication evolves, and there's a lot of hard data on that right now. So everybody is right now thinking. I think some good things that are happening is if you are a female engineer, or it's easy to get a job. It's really easy because most companies are like, yeah, for good and for bad. I think there's something alarming about it, but I think positive discrimination might make sense in those cases. Women add a lot to the discussion, and I think they make most groups, all groups, I guess, more interesting. And the cool thing, which we don't see at all in Poland, is in let's say in New York, my experience from the tech scene there is there are so many different diversity groups. There is the black women who code, there is Latinos who code, there's Latino women who code, or and different meetups of all types of minorities that are trying to get heard in the industry. And actually, it's an amazing asset when you think about it. So for me, even I never felt particularly discriminated as a woman. But for example, being a Polish person in Silicon Valley, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm not an MIT, Stanford grad, that sucks. And suddenly you realize that people want that perspective of Eastern Europe. And suddenly what I actually, that was probably the bigger hurdle for me of how do I belong to that group by not really belonging to that group? And suddenly I realized I actually can add a lot of value to that group, and people ask me about things where I actually have unique experience that they don't. So that might be one thread of trying to find your place in that domain.
So I would like to add only about this positive discrimination. This is something I was discussing with a guy earlier today. And I'm afraid of that. So I think that we should focus on replying to the needs. And one example from my business life was how women in tech cope with interviews. If you have several hard tech interviews one by one, male will do better. And if you are aware of that, then you can reply and imply actually solutions so that you hire that women if they have worse results. But after all, when you look at them at work, women often perform better.
Yeah, there's something I think very interesting. As a man that works in technology, see this, and I know a lot of friends of mine that run companies, and in most cases it's not like they want to discriminate it. It's so ingrained in our societies, the male-female differentiation, that most people just don't register it. So I see a lot of startups where they have a male-dominant culture, where, like, for example, all the names of the meeting rooms are related to boys' comics and superheroes and stuff like that. And those, like, in an interview, those are the kind of questions that in most cases throw women away from those companies because they feel it's a mainly male organization. So how can we fix that? Without going all the way to school, which is another question, but how can we fix that? How can we fix the culture of many of the startups so that it includes, in a natural way, more women that feel comfortable to work there?
I think just like being aware of that. So just have some female friends visit your workplace and ask them, would they be comfortable working here?
Do you have any specific experience where you were like, holy shit, this is so boyish?
Yeah. A bunch of, yeah. So for example, GitHub, an amazing company that everybody in tech knows, they're working hard on diversity, and they're sponsoring a bunch of events, and I work with them on a bunch of events, and they're really trying to get also women to work there and then have good developers. They just hired a VP of engineering, which is female, which is amazing for a company like GitHub, because, you know, like a strong technical woman that kicks ass. But their workplace, whenever I go there, it's very... I think it's very boyish, and there is even a female room which is pink and has some like lounges and has some nail stuff, and that's all okay, I think. And also I know that women kind of came up with the initiative to have it there, but it does create some weird gender biases. So for example, like in one of my companies we had like, you know, one room with pink walls and a huge volcano. But I've
seen that.
Yeah, but I don't think it was particularly directed towards women. I think it's just like, you know, like...
It was cool.
I thought so, and we thought it was just inclusive, but I think it's... Unfortunately, you need to be open to criticism, and like you need to be open to pointing, like to somebody pointing out, hey, this is not totally cool, and you need to just have a culture of open communication, because things will happen you will not realize. I moved to the States and I realized some of my funny Polish humor, some of the comments I was making were racist. Like, and I was told by some friends, like, you should not be saying that. And I was like, what's wrong with that? And we had a long argument, and then I was like, okay, yeah, you're probably right. If I was in the position of that person, I would have considered that way. Although I really had no intentions, neither do I really define myself as racist. I think it's just about being open to feedback, yeah, which goes down to communication and so on.
I totally agree, and this is all about awareness. So in Allegro way, there are mostly men in IT,
I know the company
discussed,
pretty well.
Right? And we discovered that some female doesn't feel good in this environment because of the jokes, because of some statements, and they talk about it. So we have a program, we explain what the bias thing is, and what are the differences, and how to be actually, how to take care of it, how to be aware of it, and how to react if you're in this situation. So I think that this is all about kind of awareness and being polite to each other.
Which sounds really easy, but it's not.
It's not.
On so many levels, it's so easy to say something that's going to have repercussions, and then there isn't really an open forum to communicate it, so then there's some kind of tension growing. But I just want to say one more thing to what you were saying before about role models and hiring. From my experience, women kick ass. Like whatever, usually they think they're underqualified, they're overqualified, they're really hardworking. They do worse at interviews. I just hired a person 2 days ago who was really, really nervous on the first interview, to the point where like we needed to change the path of the discussion to, you know, what are your favorite books, because she likes reading, for her to be able to relax. But she's a very competent person. You just have to see through that. And then it's the same with VC, with like searching for VC funding. Like, women are not going to be as good of salespeople. They're not. Like, this is, I mean, some of them will be, but that's exceptions. But most women are way more kind of merit-based, and they don't like to oversell themselves because they're taught not to, because it's not what ladies do. And so, and you know, neither do we have, sorry to bring it down to that, but neither do we have practical experience for, like, you know, like picking up on the different sex, like just the social order just works a bit differently, and we develop this different skills because of that. So even as an investor, like, I always need to have this filter of like, okay, she's saying this, which means there is probably way more, and like you have to pull that information from someone, which is a really interesting psychological kind of trick.
So actually my question kind of tackles into that, because I've had this discussion many times, and at one point everything comes down to education and how, not just university, but actually all the way to kindergarten, how are we educating our daughters? And I've had this own discussion with my wife. My wife is the same. She's a very capable person, but she's always kind of underplaying her capacity. And it always strikes me like, what is it? What kind of education did you have that you keep thinking continuously that you are unable to do this when she kicks ass? So I wonder if, do you have kids?
Yes, I do.
Boys, girls?
Boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl? You don't have. I just had 2 boys, and I wanted 2 girls though. But
congratulations.
thank you. Twins, so it's tough. But so if you're a parent, if you have to reboot education in the 21st century, with tech in mind, with all the things that are happening right now, what should we change in the way we educate our kids?
So thank you. So I will start this round. I had a friend who explained this to me, like, this is really basic stuff. You don't need to rebuild education system. This is like the future, right? You can do it step by step. But like basic stuff. When his daughter was born, Łukasz came to the office and asked me, tell me why everyone tells her, the daughter, like, oh, how pretty you are, what a cute girl. And instead, when their friends had a baby boy, he was hearing like, how smart you are, how great it was, great move, good for you, right? So this is early motivation. This is something we do to our kids unintentionally. Yep. And we are not aware how this makes their life complicated in the future.
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't have parental experiences, so I cannot talk about it, but there's something really concerning going on, because there used to be more women graduating from engineering degrees, even in 1985. Not to mention my mom has a master's degree in computer science, so there was already computer scientists, you know, and by the time, like, you know, the AGH probably started around 1980s. And right now it's actually, the trends are declining, because I think that's what's happening. I mean, the pop culture around us is all about objectifying women's body. I thought there was something ridiculous about the fact where I was like looking at, oh my God, what I'm going to wear for the panel, and I was like, I'm speaking about one panel about diversity in tech, and like my concern is how I'm going to look on stage. And that's a problem. Like, even the fact that women have to like spend time, mental energy of like what like, if I have my makeup, like, you know, in my bag, or if I have this and that, and then I was like, okay, fuck you, I'm not going to iron this because I don't have time. I would rather get some data on the fact that only 4% of senior VCs are women, right? Or only, and then I think it's just how we spend our time or what's expected of us. Like, I think it's just, we kind of objectify ourselves by doing that, which maybe is inevitable to some point because of some stupid genetic predisposition, but like we can choose how we want to spend our times and we can choose how we want to address our like loved ones. For me, I think one thing's my parents for sure never kind of, I have a sister, so there was two of us, both parents are engineers. The first time I started wearing dresses when I was like 17 maybe, like I was never, like I was a boy growing up. I was like going on trees, playing with blocks. I don't remember many dolls. I think I was not put into that kind of stereotypic mindset of you're a girl, you're supposed to look pretty, right? You know, I enjoy, you know, being a woman at the time, but I don't think I grew up with that mindset of this is expected of me and I'm going to look pretty by some guy one day. I think it's just how we spend our time and how we...
That's true. And another thing is that probably as a result, but this is not proven, these are just thoughts about, is the fact that ladies around 11, 12 years old who are equally good at maths, physics, whatever, science, as boys, they change. And they all leave these hard sciences. Why, right? So we don't know the answer. We can just talk about this. But if you address this issue, you can get great results. And this is what Google did with Mind the Gap program, where they invited girls at this age before they decided on the university. And they told them about what engineers do, what developers do, what is it all about. And I was shocked when I ran one of the panels and the girl asked me, look, do you think that if I have like 4 degree in maths, am I able to do okay-ish at the IT, at the university? And I was like shocked. I told her, look, if this was your colleague asking, a male colleague asking the same question, he would ask me, am I gonna be great? I have like strong 4 degree and world is open to me, right? So this is this mental inequality.
I mean, to be fair, I'm sure many men in tech are also insecure and have their, you know, it's not like everybody is like killing it, I think. Also, I'm speaking on a panel tomorrow at 10 a.m., track 2, shameless plug, about the emotional cost of entrepreneurship. And I think it's equally taxing for men and women, and for men even more so because of how they communicate and how they internalize emotions and how they deal with stress and all that. So I think that it's probably not as green for some, like, you know, for some men, yes. For some women, it's also not true what we're talking about. But yeah, and to address what you said, like why around the age of 11 or 10, girls who are better at math initially, because they're more patient, where like they're less hyperactive than like just biologically than boys, become worse. It's also about just how. There's a lot of studies showing that women relate better to stories just because of like our empathy levels, and there isn't a clear story, or there wasn't a clear story of like what like, you know, what IT is, what like computer science will be. There isn't like an emotional connection of I would want to do that because it, you know, saves the world. I think women relate better to this as opposed to just like abstract, you know, I'm going to deal with numbers and I'm going to, you know, like just kind of competitive, you know, making something faster, I think. And this is a part of like the role model part that we have to play of, you know, showing like right now tech is transforming every single industry. So it's important to be here because whatever you want to do in the world, whatever your personal interest is in or story or whatever, you know, makes your heart beat faster, you're going to do it more efficiently if you work in tech just because of the multiplier impact that the tech has on the world. So it's also about the storytelling that's missing for the girls too, right?
That's actually a very good point. There's a fantastic book called Boys and Girls that talks about the different stories that 3 years old to 5 years old tell each other and the role play they do. And boys and girls are very different. I mean, they both touch the same points, but from a different perspective. You know, girls are normally a lot more caring and a lot more about nurturing, even though the conflict within the stories is exactly as powerful as the one in boys. Boys tend to be more aggressive, more about fighting, but still the same conflict happens. So it's a very good point about storytellings and hearing different stories that resonate with women better than men.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, like, startup is such a broad category. You can have a bootstrap startup, venture-backed startup. You can have a non-profit type of startup, because just whenever you're using tech to solve, you can just have go across the spectrum and just use technology to do something. And whatever your like kind of risk aversion level is, there is going to be a place. There's going to be a great place for anyone.
We're actually running out of time, so I want to get a couple of questions from the audience. So, women or men, questions? Come on, guys. There we go. Can I borrow your mic for a sec?
So, girls, what we can do now to attract more women to IT?
I guess what Katarzyna is doing, actually, and she's not here. I mean, I would happily invest in not in every company with a woman founder, but there's more and more VCs focusing on that, and for a good reason. Companies with women are more stable in terms of the founder conflict. They usually create a more stable culture, and right now
except if they're only run by women. I mean, every employee is a woman. Tends to be pretty hectic. I have data.
Oh no, I mean that's a rare case, but like I have some data.
Mix is good.
So in 2009, 9.5% of startups had at least women founder for the US. That's not for Poland. I don't think we have. There's some startup research project going on in Poland, so maybe we'll have those numbers for Poland next year. But that was 2009, and less than 10%. And in 2014, that rate almost doubled to 18%. In Brooklyn, that number is 28%. So in environments when there's more and more,
Sure. Answer, but short. So we can
short.
get
Okay, that's it.
You want to answer?
We're here.
So I totally agree, and as I mentioned, Mind the Gap and all these programs telling like little girls that they can succeed in tech is really important, but then we'll have this success in 10 years from now.
Okay, another question? Someone? There we go. Oh, yours.
Hi, actually, I'm one of the next speakers. I run Girls Code Fun. We teach girls programming from ages 8 to 12. And everything you've said is correct. It's getting girls involved. And one of the things that we notice is a lot of parents don't think of programming as something for girls.
Yep.
So it really starts with families and schools talking about programming, tech, fun things like that.
How do you get parents to learn that?
Yeah.
And thank you for those initiatives.
So, someone else? Last question? Another one. Okay, we're back here.
So, girls, what is your role models when it comes to female founders or female techies?
Ooh, role models for female techies. My role model is Ela, actually. I've known her for quite a while.
I don't think I have a female role. My role model was early on my father, who's entrepreneurial. But yeah, I have. No, I don't think I have a role model, like a single one that I would be comfortable pointing out.
So I didn't think about role model in tech, but I really value Sharon Wosmek running ASTIA organization, which is focused on tech startups and activities run by women in tech, as she discovered that only 7% of tech startups run by women are actually funded by different VCs. She was shocked, and then they started this ASTIA organization. And she's really focusing on this, and she knows a lot, and she's kind of role model for all those ladies, despite of the fact that she doesn't do a startup on her own, like tech startup. Still, she has a variety of programs, and she impacts actually the numbers in the US. So.
Okay, well, I'm afraid we're running out of time. So thank you very much, ladies, for a
Thank you very
fantastic
much.
panel. Thank you guys very much for the questions and for being here. Here we go.